ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. So I apologize. Last week we had to cancel the discussion because of my health. So today we will continue from where we left off last week. Not last week, the week before that. So we have been discussing from the 5th verse of Manah Siksha by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this particular verse we have been discussing about little more subtler obstacles. We saw in verse 4 about 3 gross obstacles. Asadvarta, or engaging in activities which enhance one's material thirst, or you can say even prajalpa. And then muktikata, discussing about life beyond material suffering. And then the third obstacle that we saw was attachment to worshipping Radha and attachment to worshipping Lakshmi Narayan or any other form of their lordships other than Radha and Krishna. So these were the grosser obstacles, or the grossest obstacles, you can say. But there are obstacles which are subtler than that, which are lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, and pride, which are being discussed in this verse, in this particular verse. So we'll chant the verse, and I'll do a quick recap of what we have seen till now in the commentary by Srila Bhaktivigyan Goswami Maharaj. We'll chant the verse first together. Asacheshta kashta prada vikata pashalibiriha prakamam kamadi prakata patapati vyatikarai gale badva hanye hamiti bakabidvartma pagane kurutvam futkara navati sayatatvam manayita. So in this particular verse it is mentioned iha prakata patapati, in this very bright path which has been revealed, the path of devotional service which has been revealed by the acharyas, vyatikaraihi, there are a group of highway robbers who attack the sadhaka. They are prakamam kamadi, one's own lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, pride, the 6 anarthas, right? And gale badva, these 6 highway robbers have bound the neck of the sadhaka with kashtaprada vikata pashalibir, with troublesome, dreadful ropes. So the ropes are asat cheshta, of wicked deeds which are inspired by these 6 enemies. So these activities act as ropes because they make us completely addicted, right? Lust can addict us, definitely, it's really a very addictive attraction to the opposite sex, right? And greed can be addictive, right? Once we start getting more, we want more and more, and you see in gambling and other such things, gambling is severely addictive. and it makes one addicted through the agency of greed, right? So then similarly, anger is also addictive. Once it starts, it becomes very difficult to stop. So these are all compared to ropes because they can really bind the person and make him helpless to move against their dictations, actually. So then he says, what is the solution? Hanyeham. Uh, Hanyeham means I am being killed. Iti kurutvam futkaran. Cry out piteously like this. Hmm? Cry out to whom? Bakabid Vartmapagane. Vartmapagane means policemen. Bakabid Vartmapagane means policemen who are protecting the path leading to Krishna, who is the killer of Bakasur. He says, once you cry out for help, then they will come and save you from these enemies. Right? So the path that is mentioned here is the path of devotion. The traveler is the sadhaka. The highway robbers are the six enemies: lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, and pride. Right? And the neck is one's devotional progress. And the act of binding or binding our neck is choking of our devotional progress, which happens due to the ropes. What are the ropes? Wicked deeds which are inspired by lust, anger, greed, etc. When we indulge in these kind of activities which are driven by lust or anger or envy or greed or illusion or pride, then it chokes. It chokes our devotional progress. So the solution is crying out piteously means seeking help, or preparing ourselves to seek help where we feel comfortable. We feel very comfortable seeking help from our dear friend. We feel very comfortable seeking help from our dear parents, sisters, or brothers. So in those people, either where there has been a solid um, uh, prolonged sense of mutual, you can say, um, sacrifice based relationship, then we feel very comfortable seeking out for help. So we hanyeham, my spiritual life is getting finished, so please help me. In this way, we to whomever we feel comfortable, we go and open up and seek help, and they are the protectors of the path, so they will definitely come and save us, right? So this is what this verse says. And Maharaj says that this is a very important verse for us. First, he also, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, spends some time describing each of these words. He says, cheshta means efforts, asat cheshta means false efforts, kashtaprada asat cheshta means that these kind of futile efforts, they are not just futile, but in engaging in these futile efforts, there is lot of suffering also that is involved, right? And then he gives the example of in the Soviet literature there is this uh, uh, writing called the golden calf, right? So in that there was the protagonist of that particular book. His aim in life was to get a million rubles or $1,000,000. And after getting $1,000,000, he writes, the dream of an idiot has come true, because you think that one will be satisfied after achieving that, but it will not be, right? So vikata means very severe suffering. So uh, that is the nature of this world, right? That uh, uh, Soham nrinam kshulla sukaya dukkam mahadgatanam viramaya tasya pravartaye bhagavatam puranam yadaha sakshat bhagavan rishibhyah. Soham nrinam shulla sukaya mahadgatanam dukkam. The nature of this material world is that we all engage in too much suffering while engaged in various kinds of endeavors, and the result of those endeavors is very, very meager pleasure, right? So, and then on top of that, once we engage in these activities for getting this meager pleasure, these activities are highly addictive activities also. This meager pleasure is also very addictive. That is why they are compared to ropes which can bind us, right? So the impressions, they bind our hand and foot, causing us excruciating pain, right? So Maharaj gives the example of people think that, oh, I will just need little money, then I can peacefully perform bhajan, uh, and little more and little more and little more, and then this way decades pass, and we have not made any tangible spiritual progress, and at the same time we are completely, in one sense, still not satisfied with our financial situation or material situation, right? And in this way, not just decades have passed, but lifetimes have passed actually. Therefore, he says, Raghunath Das Goswami is comparing them to ropes, huh? Like that. And there is not one, but there are a gang of thieves, and they have their own ropes. And it starts with lust, right? So it starts with lust, but then it has its own retinue or group, followers. Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarya, like that. Then he says that uh, they are not just robbing us. They don't just rob us, but they literally kill us. They kill us means our spiritual progress becomes completely choked up due to indulging in these kind of activities which are very unfavorable for our Krishna consciousness. Every time we fall prey to lust or greed or anger, it binds us more and more with vasanas. We become, every time we fall prey to it, we become all the more susceptible to fall prey to it the next time. In this way, it becomes very, very addictive actually. Once once you go, like I think I shared the example of, once I was in a place which was very well known for casinos, and I just wanted to just try it out, and it's literally within seconds it can make you completely addicted. This is the first time. It's not like you are a very seasoned gambler or anything like that. First time you are getting into the casino, it has a capacity of completely binding you. Lust is like that, greed is like that, right? So and in this way, it takes our mental space, it takes our physical time, it takes our energy, it takes our resources and everything. Then what is left to be spent in Krishna's service actually? So it is killing us. So we have to seek help from the devotees, because devotees, why only devotees? Because devotees can empathize with us, because devotees, the other devotees share the same value system. They can understand what we are losing out. Our own parents, they may have affection, our own relatives may have affection for us, but they cannot empathize with us. They cannot understand what our problem is. They'll think, what is the problem? Actually, you're doing quite well. You're earning a lot. You are having a nice, affectionate family. What is the problem? You are not able to understand the problem, right? So they can't even understand that we are in trouble actually. So that is the main issue. So that is why it's important to earn a trustworthy, meaningful relationship with people who share a common value system, so that they can understand what we are going through and they can empathize with us. So therefore here he says, he does not just say that cry out for help, but he says cry out for help to bakabid vartmapagane, to those people who are protecting the path leading to Krishna, who is the killer of Bakasur. So the call for uh, establishing a loving relationship is with devotees, right? Like that. So then in the next section, Maharaj discusses about what is the source of kama. So Maharaj explains from the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says kama is born out of sankalpa. So what is this difference between kama and sankalpa? This is a verse, sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvan asheshatah. Manasai vendriya gramam viniyamya samantata. This comes in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So he says sankalpa is like a generic determination to enjoy. I want to enjoy. Today I want to have a nice time. And kama is a more specific, when this determination takes a more specific shape. I want to enjoy in this particular way, or I want to enjoy this particular object. That specific desire is called kama, whereas a generic desire to enjoy is called as sankalpa. That is why it is mentioned sankalpa prabhavan kaman, the kama which is born out of a generic sankalpa, like that, a generic determination to enjoy, right? And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says that if we simply want to gratify our senses, we have a deep rooted purpose, which is sankalpa actually. Kamera tatparya nija sambhoga kevala Krishna sukha tatparya matra premata prabala. He says the interpretation or explanation of kama is that it is nija sambhoga, the desire to please our own self and our self only, kevala. So that root of lust is ultimately, I want to feel happy, I want to feel very gratified. That is the actual root cause of lust, he says. But that is not the root cause also. The real root cause is that we have turned our face away from Krishna, right? That is the root cause, and that manifests into all kinds of problems, right? We saw this step by step, how this manifests. First is Ishad Apetasya. This is that famous verse from the 11th canto. Bayam dvitiya abhiniveshitasyat Ishad Apetasya viparyayo asmritihi tan mayayato buddha abhajetvam bhakteika isham guru devatatma. This is that verse in which it is mentioned that the whole thing starts with Ishad Apetasya. When the living entity decides to turn his face away from Krishna, and he says, why should my enjoyment be dependent on Krishna? Can't I enjoy separate from him? So Krishna says, yeah, I can try to facilitate it. So he turns his face away from Krishna. And then Tan Mayayato, Maya Devi catches. Because Maya Devi is the one who has been commissioned to facilitate this devious desire to enjoy separately from Krishna. So how does Maya Devi facilitate? Viparyaya and Asmriti. She has two agents, the Avaranatmika Shakti and the Prakshepatmika Shakti. So the Avaranatmika Shakti makes the living entity forget his constitutional position. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. Or even, I am not this body, I am the soul. Aham Brahmasmi. Even that, it makes him forget. And the Prakshepatmika Shakti makes him identify with matter, or a body made with matter. This is called as Viparyaya. Then, when he has this, when he is equipped with this wrong identification, then what starts is Dvitiya Abhinivesh. Dvitiya Abhinivesh is complete absorption in things of this world. Raga Abhinivesh and Dvesha Abhinivesh. Certain things which he is absorbed with a desire to enjoy it, and certain things he is absorbed with a desire of hatred, hating it, wanting to stay away from it. And this eventually leads to complete fear of samsara, because the whole material world is temporary, and being the soul, whatever he likes, he wants to eternally enjoy it, and whatever he dislikes, he wants to eternally stay away from it. But in this material world, being a temporary manifestation, nothing comes eternally. So this leads the living entity to stay in a constant state of fear, bhayam, the fear of samsara, right? So this all starts, this is the original problem. That is why, if you see, while all of the yoga processes can address only the problem, it can address 3 and 4 only, right? It can address 3 and 4. It can make us completely, it can wipe out the material vasanas, or you can even say 2, 3 and 4. It can wipe out the material vasanas, the material memory of enjoying in this material world or suffering in this material world, whether it is Jnana Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. To a great extent, they can actually wipe out these material impressions. But one thing that they cannot do is actually turn the person's face towards Krishna. That is the root cause of the problem. So the root cause of the problem is not really addressed by any of these other yogas. That is only addressed by bhakti. That's why it is mentioned, tan mayayato buddha abhajet tam bhakteika isham gurudevatatma. So therefore, the intelligent person, the really intelligent person, does not just address the superficial reasons, but he addresses the root cause of the problem, which is turning one's face away from Krishna. So how does one turn one's face towards Krishna? By surrendering to a bona fide guru who will teach the path of bhakti. So then he will teach that person how to re-establish one's forgotten relationship with Krishna. Then when one turns one's face towards Krishna, yahan Krishna tahanahi mayara adhikar. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hai Andakar, Yahan Krishna Tahanahi Maya Radhikar. So that is the solution. So that is possible only when one takes up to the path of bhakti. Otherwise, all the other processes, they actually don't address the root cause of the problem. Okay. So this is in this section, Maharaj discusses this thing, about this lust which is arising from sankalpa, right? So this is that verse 6.24 and 25. Sa nischayena yoktavyo yogo anirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kamams tyaktva sarvan asheshatah मनसैवेन्द्रिय ग्रामं विनियम्य समन्ततः शनैर शनैर उपरमेद बुद्ध्या धृति गृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किंचित अपि चिन्तयेत्. So the main point is that sa nischayena yoktavyo. This yoga must be practiced with determination. Anirvinna chetasa. And it's not that the first time you practice, you may get some success immediately. Success will come slowly. So one should not become morose and depressed. Anirvinna chetasa. One should be devoid of depression. Asheshatah tyaktva. One should completely give up sarvan sankalpa prabhavan kamans. All kind of impressions which lead to desires, or desires born out of vasanas, material vasanas, that should all be given up. Indriya gramam viniyamya samantatah. And all the senses should be completely controlled. How? Manasa, by the mind. Buddhya dhriti grihitaya, and by concentrated intelligence. By the mind, by the concentrated intelligence, by making the mind meditate on the Atma. Of course, this is actually Ashtanga Yoga, but similar thing is we have to engage our mind and senses in the activities of Krishna consciousness, and gradually by that one can gain victory over Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman. Desires are born out of material impressions. Because gradually, when the senses engage in Krishna conscious activities, the mind will keep accumulating more and more spiritual vasanas, and then the mind will start meditating on those spiritual vasanas, so that it will get an inspiration to keep performing spiritual activities like that. Right. So basically what it means is stop the senses from engaging in Krishna sense gratificatory activities, rather give them positive Krishna conscious engagement. This is one of the main things that he addresses in terms of addressing lust. But of course, this is not the to even do this, one needs the association of Vaishnavas. Without the association of Vaishnavas alone, to give full-fledged Krishna conscious engagement to all our senses and mind is practically very, very difficult, actually, almost impossible to do that. So therefore, hanyeham iti kurutvam futkaran bakabid vartmapagane. Therefore, we should call out to devotees, because only in their association, only through their support, it is possible to constantly keep our mind and senses engaged in Krishna conscious activities like that. And he quotes Ramanujacharya and Baldev Bhushan's explanation to these verses, where he says that you can how can you deal with the vasanas with the help of mind? He says, perform a cost benefit analysis. What do I stand to gain? How meager is the gain if I indulge in this activity, and how great is the loss if I indulge in this activity? So in this way, by performing a simple cost benefit analysis, constantly performing this kind of cost benefit analysis, one can to some extent overcome. But of course, to do this also, we need the association of devotees who keep reminding us of this cost benefit analysis, right? And then in this context, we discussed about this theme of is it really possible to dovetail kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, which is seemingly what Srila Narottam Das Thakur is indicating here: kama Krishna karmarpane, krodha bhakta dveshi jane, and so on. We understood that this is not a simple dovetailing, because it cannot be dovetailed like that. So basically, we saw that uh, here through this kind of an indication, Narottam Das Thakur is giving confidence to the practitioners of bhakti that don't worry, the state of perfection on the path of bhakti will not be devoid of emotions. It will not be devoid of opportunity to express yourselves. You can fully express all your emotions in devotional service. When you accept devotional service, there is a full spectrum of all kinds of emotions. There is scope for experiencing and expressing all these emotions within the realm of devotional service. That is what he is suggesting by indicating Kama Krishna Karmarpane, Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Jane, Lobha Sadhu Sange Harikata, Moha Ishta Labha Vine, and so on. So rather than indicating that, simply dovetail your propensities in Krishna consciousness, it does not happen like that. And that such kind of simplistic suggestion is highly impossible in Krishna consciousness actually. So it needs a complete overhaul of our value system actually. It is not as simple as that. Like we saw we saw many examples last time we discussed this theme. It's not that today I'm feeling a deep attraction to the opposite sex and I can just dovetail it and get attracted to the DT forms of the Lord. It does not happen like that, because attraction is very specific, and attraction takes place due to our past experiences over many lifetimes. So we cannot tell our mind, okay, stop getting attracted to this, get attracted to this. It does not happen like that. Rather, it is a suggestion by Srila Narottam Das Thakur that within the realm of devotional service, you will not be emotionally deprived. There is full scope for emotional expression and experience within the realm of devotional service. That's what he's indicating here. Okay. So then we discussed the next theme we started discussing, which is what is the relationship between the enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarya. What is the relationship? We started discussing this, but we didn't cover much in this. I will just share a little bit what we have seen already. He says that we are so much attacked by this gang of thieves that we have almost become a member of that gang only, he says. So, and this gang of thieves is led by Kama. Kama Rupam Durasadam, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He says Kama Rupam means it can take any form it wishes, right? So it can take any form. Kama can come in any form. It can be towards opposite sex, it can be towards money, it can be towards position, whatever it may be, right? So sometimes he says lust comes in undisguised forms, in the form of even one may chant the holy names and perform all the spiritual activities, but with anya abhilasha, with other desires, dhanam, janam, sundarim, kavitam, like that. One may perform devotional service for fulfilling those desires also, right? And he says Kama generates 4 types of anarthas. We saw these kind of 4 types of anarthas last time. Dushkritotta anartha, Sukritotta anartha, Bhaktiotta anartha, and Aparadotta anartha. So unfavorable desires which are born out of sinful past lives. If you have had many sinful habits, sinful activities which we were attached to, then it can lead to desires which are born due to those sinful habits, right? And then Sukritotta anarthas, we may have had a very pious life and we may have many pious attachments. Pious attachments can be much more strong attachments than even impious, because pious seems good actually, but not all pious activities are necessarily favorable for Krishna consciousness, right? Otherwise, then why should at all a distinction be made between piety and Krishna conscious activities? They can be synonymous, but actually they are not synonymous. Even though most of the pious activities can be dovetailed in Krishna's service, but some of them may actually be unfavorable for Krishna consciousness also. So there are anarthas which can be born out of a past pious life also, right? And bhaktiyotta anarthas are anarthas are unfavorable desires which are born due to proper practice of bhakti, and they manifest in the form of puja labh pratishta, right? Because when you nicely practice bhakti, then people will start noticing, they will start giving you facilities, fame, glorification, and it can get to anyone's head actually. So this is called as Taranga Rangini in Madhurya Kadambini. And aparadhotta anarthas, whenever we commit an offense either towards Vaishnavas or towards the Vedic literatures or towards a spiritual master, right? Any of the nama parad, it leads to accumulation of unfavorable material desires, which again stop our this thing. So this is ultimately, Maharaj says that it is kama which leads to either dushkrita or sukrita or aparad, or the unfavorable desires born due to practice of bhakti, like that. And he says of the four offenses, they generate the most horrible anarthas. And offenses means they are generally born due to a disrespectful attitude. Like that. So then he says that if I am driven by this desire, I begin what desire? He says, it is precisely our independent, capricious desire to do only what I want that is at the heart of committing offenses. So he says, he's telling that ultimately these four kinds of anarthas, dushkritotta, sukritotta, bhaktiotta, and aparadhotta anarthas, he says the cause for all these four kinds of anarthas is actually kama only, he says. So kama is the beginning or source of all these things. Because even in offenses, we want, we have a kama for certain material things or some fame or things like that. And when we don't get, then we end up offending people. We end up not giving respect to those persons. So ultimately, he says kama is the root cause of all these four kinds of anarthas, he says. So then, sometimes people being aware of this problem of karma try to overcome it. This is the point. When you understand that karma is the problem, then many times people try to overcome this karma by practicing vairagya, right? But the problem with this vairagya is that vairagya, when independently practiced, has a very powerful, it becomes a very powerful cause of hardening the heart. Okay. So, but in the process of bhakti, because we want to make the heart soft so that it can start experiencing very favorable, sweet emotions in relationship with Krishna, an independent cultivation of vairagya is actually very unfavorable for one's progress on the path of bhakti. One may become somewhat, at least temporarily, capable of overcoming karma, but end up actually developing a hard heart, which is counterproductive to our endeavors to progress on the path of bhakti. That is why Rupa Goswami, after discussing the 64 limbs of devotional service, he says actually jnana and vairagya are not limbs of bhakti. Because when limbs means when you cultivate them, it should nourish our bhakti. Nourishing our bhakti means making our heart soft. He says, but when independent cultivation of jnana and vairagya actually makes the heart very hard. Why does jnana make the heart hard? He says, in jnana, in the process of jnana, he says, you will have to constantly defeat opposing arguments, engage in various kinds of debates and arguments like that. And that makes the heart hard. And why does vairagya make the heart hard? He says you have to constantly keep saying no, 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 no to so many things. And eventually that's a heart hardening process actually. So he says, but actually vairagya is not our practice. Those who practice vairagya as a means of achieving something in spiritual life are just torturing themselves, getting nothing but suffering. So Rupa Goswami was a renounced man, but did he practice vairagya? No, he did not. For him, vairagya was not an end in itself. For him, it was the natural state of his heart. It was naturally born out of his practice of bhakti. When affection, even material affection, leads to vairagya. How? Some kind of vairagya, right? Like when a mother, like I can give the example of my sister also. Some of you might have heard this. My sister actually, my sister was my first student. She was the one who probably fanned the appetite of teaching in my heart, maybe. So she was academically just 1 year junior to me. So I would teach her, but she was a fairly good student, but she was not like very ambitious or anything. I was little ambitious. She was not very ambitious. So for her own little attachments, she was really attached to. One of her very strong attachments was to sleep. So whatever it may be, when it is 9:30, she will go to sleep. It may be semester exam or board exam or whatever it may be. So, so we used to be really scared. Hey, tomorrow is your exam. You have still not completed 2 or 3 chapters. Yeah, but still it's 9:30, sleeping time, right? That's all. She was like totally unaffected, sthita pragya actually. You may have 2 chapters left, 3 chapters left, but when it is time to sleep, means sleep, right? So and this sister, same sister, she got married. Her child would sleep during the day and stay awake during night, and she was working at that time. So and the husband was also working. The grandparents need their night sleep, right? So ultimately she had to take care of the child every day night, and she can't go to office late also. So every single day for years together, she would get compromised sleep, and still she could function actually. So how is it that when she, the same person who was very much attracted to in one sense sleep, but when it came to her taking care of her own child, she could overcome that sleep. It's not that she was drinking coffee or some caffeine or something to stay awake and things like that. Just the fact, just that affection for the child has the capacity to overcome certain attachments that we may have, right? That kind of you can say like vairagya. So that is vairagya born out of natural attachment. But when that vairagya is falsely practiced, say no, 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 I will not do this, I will not do that, then it actually, we are torturing ourselves, uh, and it leads to hardening of heart, right? And I gave the example also that in one particular temple, there was this one doctor who became very famous, who I think he's still quite famous for treating some kind of naturopathy or something. So he makes people drink lot of water, which is way more than what we can practically drink, you know 6, 7, 8, 10 liters of water, like that. And you know say no to most of the things that you can eat actually. When people practice this kind of extreme austerities over a period of time, people saw that in these people who are taking this treatment, they were actually becoming very irritable and very like that, and very difficult to deal with. So this is some practical observation also. So the principle of renunciation vairagya begins with austerity. Austerity does not mean that a person is standing on one leg or fasting. Okay. So Maharaj says, let us consider our attachment to food. Maharaj says, even our modern scholars who study the human physiology agree that the average person eats more than what is needed from a physiological point of view, right? So this is a very interesting theme that Maharaj is actually broaching while discussing this um, theme of vairagya. He takes the example of eating. Actually, this is true with any other sensory indulgence. Eating is something which can be easily related to. So he says, why are we so attached to food? He says, is it for enjoyment or greed? Is it to get strength? He says, no. As soon as we are born, we start eating milk. Since very childhood, even in those who have been raised on artificial milk, an inner psychological association between food and love takes place in a person. He says, food and love. This is true. And you can say, he says that mother's milk is a manifestation of her love, and the baby sucks and sucks. And usually a baby wants to suck beyond the need for food. The baby sucks for love. So whenever we lack love, we start eating. That is why, if you see, even in modern mental health problems, it is often seen that when people get into depression, so depression means emotional lack of fulfillment, right? Which means lack of experience of love, lack of experience of meaningful relationships. So this leads to depression. And there are many symptoms of depression. Interestingly, if you see, alcohol addiction is one of the symptoms. Drug addiction, binge eating, eating, non-stop eating, and obesity, it leads to, obesity. These are all symptoms of depression. Why? Because as Maharaj writes here, naturally we feel that our lack of love can somehow be fulfilled through sensory indulgence. So pornography addiction, right? So this is anything, the sense of eyes or the sense of ears, these are all symptoms of depression. When someone is depressed, somehow they feel that I can compensate my emotional distress by overindulgence of my senses. So this is what we have been discussing since the last time about this connection between how this vairagya is not the solution for karma. That vairagya, if it is a natural byproduct of a positive attachment or love, then it can be very fruitful. But when this vairagya is independently practiced, then it leads to hardening of heart, which is counterproductive to our progress on the path of bhakti. I think this is where we ended our discussion last week. We will continue this discussion now. But before that, if there are any quick comments or discussion points based on what we have summarized today or discussed for the last few weeks, I'll wait for a few minutes to see if there are any quick discussion points. You can please raise your hands and then we can discuss. Anyone? Any point of discussion? Krishnam Prabhu, I am unmuting you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, this dovetailing of Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, it is still not very clear. If you can give some concrete examples how to dovetail each one of them,
No,
I think that will be...
Yeah, the point that we have been discussing is that it is not that kind of dovetailable at all. That's not what Narottam Das Thakur is indicating here. So,
but then how to dovetail?
That is what, Prabhuji, it is not dovetailable like that. Because we have a particular understanding of dovetailing. That is not what he is indicating here. If we have, let's say, if we have attraction for the opposite sex, yeah. How would you dovetail it to attraction towards the DT forms? It is not possible. I mean, it takes lot of. It is not just dovetailable like that.
No, you said that there is a scope for giving outlet to our emotions through devotion service also. That is so what these are all emotional feelings. Correct. How do we give these? How do we get these emotions fulfilled? Can you give some examples? What are those emotions and how they can be fulfilled through devotion service?
It cannot be. It's not that we start devotional service today and tomorrow devotional service will fulfill all these emotions. That's not what he is suggesting. That's what we have been discussing. Okay. Gradually, when we progress on the path of devotional service and develop attraction towards actually practice of devotional service, then Kama Krishna Karmarpane. Then we slowly start developing attraction not necessarily attraction to the opposite sex, but attraction, a generic attraction towards activities of Krishna consciousness. And then in this whole process, gradually when we start valuing devotees association and really develop good meaningful relationships with the devotees, then Krodha Bhakta Dveshijane, if someone hates the devotees, it will naturally lead to our anger. Then Lobha Sadhu Sange Harikatha. This is after we develop that attachment to Sadhu Sangha and Harikatha only, it will develop Lobha. So he says that if you invest in progressing on the path of devotional service, in the later stages of devotional service, when you become progress in the higher and higher stages of devotional service, you will not become emotionally inert, but there is ample scope for emotional expression even after perfecting the path of devotional service. That's what he's indicating. It's not that today you take up to devotional service and tomorrow devotional service will help you channelize your lust, anger, envy, greed, illusion, and pride. It's not like a
what you're saying is that as you progress in devotion service, these impurities will automatically go away.
Go away.
That's what you're.
No.
That's what you're saying. Then why do we use the word doubttailing? Because I'm not able to understand why.
I am not using the word doubttailing, Prabhu. I am not using the word doubttailing. I am telling that doubttailing should not be used. It is not doubttailing what he is suggesting. That's what I am indicating. He is not telling that these can be doubttailed. What he is suggesting is that these kind of emotions at a stage of perfected devotional service is not devoid of emotions, but it is rich with emotions. So so that is the encouragement that, or that is the promise that Narottam Das Thakur is giving to us through this verse, rather than a simplistic suggestion of, oh, it is very easy to doubttail lust like that. It is not like that. That's not what he is suggesting. So it is not, they are not that kind of doubttailable, because we have a standard understanding of doubttailing. It is not, none of these emotions are doubttailable like that in devotional service. It leads.
But, many places we have come across in Prabhupada's books that how these emotions, for example, when you have a expression, when you get angry, instead of getting angry at material things, like how Hanuman used anger in the service of the Lord.
Yeah, but so, Hanuman never had attachment to any material things. He always had attachment to Lord Ram and his devotees. Because he had attachment to Lord Ram and devotees, that's why spontaneously he could become angry when someone was blaspheming Lord Ram or his devotees. But at a stage when we have not developed that kind of attachment towards Lord Krishna or his devotees, how are we going to exercise our anger? We will become angry only when things which we are already attached to is taken away. So how is that overnight doubttailing of anger going to take place? It won't happen like that. So if someone slaps me and he is my well-wisher, but I become extremely angry at him, so he says, okay, you don't have to give up your anger, but show that anger towards a stranger. Can we show that anger towards a stranger? I mean, it can't happen like that. You know, that kind of doubttailing will not happen.
So that word doubttailing should not be used at all.
It is, or at least our understanding of doubttailing should be changed in this context. It is not that kind of doubttailing. Yeah. Doubttailing here, actually what the acharyas mean is there is scope of expression of these emotions even within the realm of perfected devotional service. That is what it means.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yeah, go ahead, Prabhuji. Venkat Govind Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and you can please raise your hands. I will unmute you. Is that okay? I am unmuting you.
Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
Dandavat Pranam. Prabhu, last session I had asked a question at the end, but you asked me to remind this time.
Yeah, what was the question, Prabhu?
The question was, where is the propensity for the jiva to turn away from Krishna? What is the reason for that? Because that is the main cause for all the anarthas and everything. So you asked me to ask in this session because last time we ran out of time.
Yeah. Actually, this thing, basically what you are asking is actually the jiva fall down question only. in one sense, if you actually see, because the jiva fell down after turning his face away from Krishna. So essentially, you are asking this question only. But there is an answer to this question, but this question cannot be logically understood at the stage of sadhana bhakti. The answer to this question, why the living entity chose to turn his face away from Krishna. So this cannot be understood at the stage of sadhana bhakti. That is why many people thought that Prabhupada was evading the jiva fall down question. Prabhupada said, sometimes he would say, you go back and find out. So, so why did the jiva fall down? Prabhupada would say, you go back and find out. So it sounds very much like evading the question, not wanting to answer the question. But interestingly, actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also indicates the same answer. He says, why the pure living entity chose to turn his face away from Krishna. He says that certain things cannot be understood in the conditioned state at all. It is not possible. He says the answer to this question, he says that this question can be understood only in the realm of spiritual time. So one who is qualified to experience spiritual time, he says that he can understand the answer to this question. But who can experience spiritual time? He says only the person who has reached the stage of bhava and prema, he can experience spiritual time. So only on the realm of spiritual time can the answer to this question can be understood. I will just, you may think that I am also trying to evade this question, but let us go to the essay where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually speaks about this. A very interesting essay. He speaks about in this book called Bhaktya Loka, which is a you can say like a book that he had. It was not a book, but it was a series of essays that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote about the second and third verse of Nectar of Instruction. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha, and utsaha nischaya dhairya tat karma pravartanat. In that essay on nischaya, he addresses this point actually. So nischaya means what? Nischaya means to endeavor with confidence. He says one can endeavor with confidence only when one is free of doubts. But when one is filled with doubts, one can never endeavor with confidence. So one should try to overcome the doubts. And he says one of the aspects of overcoming doubts is to understand which doubt can get cleared at what stage. For clearing which doubts, we need to wait till we devotionally progress more, right? So in that, he talks about the living entity. He says, I will just try to read the relevant section, otherwise we will end up reading the whole essay. So he says, okay, he says that okay, while considering the fourth reality, the Amnaya says that the living entities are minute particles of the spiritual sun Krishna, and they are innumerable. As the spiritual world is manifested by Krishna's chit or spiritual potency, and as the material world is manifested by the inferior illusory energy, similarly, the living entities are manifested by a portion of the spiritual energy, right? Krishna's spiritual form has all qualities in full, and those qualities are naturally present in the living entities in minute quantity. So that is why he is, a part of Krishna. The independent nature of Krishna is found insignificantly in the living entities also. So the living entities also have independence. For this reason, the living entities claim to be independent. As a result, all living entities have developed different propensities. Okay, they have developed different propensities. By one propensity, the living entity searches for his own happiness. You see, now we are coming to the subject matter on hand. By one propensity, the living entity searches for his own happiness, and by another propensity, he searches for Krishna's happiness. Thus, living entities are divided into two groups: those searching for their own happiness and those searching for Krishna's happiness. Those who search for Krishna's happiness are called Nitya Mukta, and those who search for their own happiness are called as Nitya Baddha. You see here, he is talking about the conditioned souls who have turned their face away from Krishna. We have still not arrived at your question. Why did they turn their face away from Krishna? We are going to come to that point. He says, now this slide is the most important slide. This couple of slides. In this regard, all inconceivable natures are under the subordination of spiritual time, he says. So spiritual time means what? Spiritual time means there is morning, there is afternoon, there is evening, there is night, but there is no experience of past and future. There is only experience of present. There is no experience of past and future. Even though there is morning, afternoon, evening, and night, there is only experience of present. This is in the spiritual world. But do we have an experience of it? Can we even relate to it? The moment you say yesterday, there is past. The moment you say tomorrow, there is future. The moment you say next moment also, there is future. So in material time, there is experience of past, present, and future. But in spiritual time, there is only experience of present. So we cannot really relate to spiritual time, right? He says the time factor of the spiritual nature is a state of eternal present. But in the inferior illusory energy, there are three states of existence: past, present, and future, right? So whatever considerations arise in this regard, if related with the spiritual time factor, then no doubts will remain. But if seen otherwise, then doubts will remain. Now, this is a very important point that he is mentioning. He says there are certain questions which can be answered on the realm of spiritual time only. So this can be explained reasonably to those people who are experiencing spiritual time, right? So, but for those who have never experienced spiritual time, it is like handing over a smartphone to a person who has never ever seen a telephone also, you know. So he will be clueless as to what to do with that, right? So similarly, he says that there are certain things which can be resolved only on the level of spiritual time. It's not that there is no answer, but the answer cannot be intelligibly explained. It will not make sense because our sense of logic is restricted to whatever we have already experienced. If we have not experienced something, it will not fit our sense of logic. So he says that now your question comes: why did a pure spirit soul search for his own happiness? This is your question, right, bro?
Right, Prabhu.
Venkat Govind, bro. Yeah. Why did he turn his face away from Krishna and search for his own happiness? He says, if one puts forward such a question, then doubts arising from the material time factor will manifest. Right? Why did he turn his face away? When did he turn his face away? And all those questions will come. He says, if one can give up such doubts, then he can perform devotional service. Otherwise, there will only be a series of arguments. If arguments are related to the inconceivable nature, then anarthas arise, he says. So, in conditioned state, the answer to this question is inconceivable, right? There are many things which are inconceivable, right? Many inconceivable things become conceivable with growth only, right? Certain things become conceivable by biological growth, right? Like what is this attraction between male and female? A 4-year-old or a 3-year-old child cannot understand actually. But with biological growth, when he grows beyond 12, 13, 14 years old, then they can understand, oh, this is what is the attraction between male and female, like that. So certain things become conceivable due to intellectual growth, right? Certain ideologies and things like that, politics and many such things, even certain aspects of mathematics. If someone is in 2nd grade and you try to teach him vector algebra or integral calculus, they cannot understand actually. It is completely inconceivable for them. But when there is a particular level of intellectual growth, then they can relate to it. So similarly, certain things become conceivable only with some amount of devotional growth. So when one grows devotionally, sufficiently devotionally, and when he reaches the stage of spiritual relationship with Krishna, at the stage of bhava or prema, then the answer to this question becomes self-evident, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. But till then, it cannot be intelligibly explained to anyone. That is why he says, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, the only solution for this is self-realization. In the previous sections, he mentions that certain subject matters can be made conceivable only through self-realization. Self-realization means actually progress on the path of devotion and reaching the stage of bhava and prema. You realize your constitutional self. Before that, it is inconceivable. So the point is, that is why Prabhupada said, you go back and find out. It was not a way of evading it, but that is the real answer actually. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is also telling, you cannot understand it till you reach, you don't have the devotional maturity to understand the answer for this question. And it is reasonable, right? We have seen it in our life, like we saw the example of biological maturity. A child cannot understand man-woman attraction. Similarly, a child who has no intellectual growth cannot understand higher subject matters. And similarly, with lack of devotional maturity, one can also not understand answers for certain questions. And certain questions remain inconceivable for the living entity only. Only Krishna can understand. So the point is, has our parampara is only Prabhupada evading this question? Is there an answer to this question in our parampara? Or has the parampara itself always been evading this question? It's not a question of evasion. It's a question of what one can understand at what stage of one's devotional development. So we should not hope to understand certain things when we don't have the devotional maturity to understand it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says the same thing. You go back and find out, which means when you go back, you will enter into the realm of spiritual time. At that stage, you will be able to find out. And same thing Prabhupada is also telling. So, so the question is, we don't have to, Prabhupada says that don't try to find out how you got into a jail. Just try to learn how you can get out of the jail. The reason why he says is how you got into the jail, you cannot actually understand. At our level, it is not possible to understand. So, but how we can get out of the jail at our level, we can definitely understand. That's what here, that's why, I mean, that's why I said, in 1 minute, I cannot answer your question. There is an elaborate discussion connected to this. Is that reasonable, Prabhu? What do you think?
So it makes a lot of sense because we are trying to, relate everything based on our material logic.
Yeah.
Whereas in spiritual realm, the material logic may not.
We have to understand that there are many things which we cannot actually understand. Actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you have given a different dimension to our understanding. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hey, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given. I have not here. Thank you, bro. Okay, any final comments before we move forward with today's discussion? Okay, so I'll share the screen. Okay, so here he says manifestation of our love, and the baby sucks, and usually a baby wants to suck beyond the need for food. The baby sucks for love. So whenever we lack love, we start eating, right? So this is true. Even modern psychology accepts this strong connection between a sense of fulfillment and actually our sensory indulgence, especially eating. Therefore, as I said, binge eating means recklessly eating way beyond what the body needs, actually. Many times in a way that is very much destructive to our body. Reckless eating, binge eating, that is very much connected to depression related issues, actually, where there is no experience of love, where the heart is completely dried up due to lack of meaningful relationships. And then it leads to one of the problems is binge eating, pornography addiction, and drug addiction, alcohol addiction, and so many such things. These are all substance abuse, over sensory overdose. Because naturally we start thinking that if the heart is not satisfied, if I just keep on giving a sensory overdose, I can overcome it like that. There is a strong emotional or psychological association inside us that food means love. What we are looking for in life is not food. What we are looking for is love, right? So this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur also says, that you will see in one of the later verses, he will say this desire for fame, desire for glorification, desire for um, facilities, desire to find fault with others, desire for hiding one's own faults. Okay. These are all symptoms of a malnourished heart, he says. A heart which is not sufficiently nourished with love. When the heart becomes very nicely nourished with love, then all these desires will go away. That is why, as a solution for these problems, he says, follow NOI verse 4. Dadati pratigrinnati guhyamakyati pritchati bhunkte bojete cheva shadvidam priti lakshanam. Have these 6 exchanges with devotees, you will develop meaningful relationships. When meaningful relationships develop, then this kind of perverted forms of gratification in the form of need for name, fame, glorification, facilities, fault finding, hiding one's own faults, these are these symptoms of malnourished heart will go away actually when our heart becomes completely nourished with Vaishnava Preeti or any love for that matter. So like that. That's why if you see people who have grown up without experiencing proper kind of affection, mature affection from their family members, they grow up to be extremely, some perverted things they will have, either they will just run after name, fame, glorification, or they will be habitual fault finders, or so many other such things. They'll be extremely ambitious, extremely comparative. They'll be constantly comparing themselves with others, envious. So these are all symptoms that our heart is aching for love actually. So many times we think that oh, if I memorize shlokas, I will become very proud. If I become famous, I will become very proud. Not necessarily. Actually, if these things are affecting us, it means that we are aching for love. That's what the acharyas explain. So when we have love, we do not need much food or sleep. What to speak of other things to satisfy our lusts? Thus, Vairagya appears in a natural way. Bhakti yoge Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayad Haitukam. When bhakti arises, which means when love for Krishna arises, naturally Vairagya manifests. Like I gave the example of my sister, very naturally giving up sleep actually. Or even if you have some attachment to certain, like we read, for those of you who have read the Journey Home book, in that His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj talks about how his mother used to smoke a lot of cigarettes, and when once when Maharaj was coughing and he told that your smoking is really affecting me, she felt so bad when she realized that her own son was being inconvenienced due to her smoking. It gave her the impetus to immediately give up that smoking actually. This is how Vairagya is naturally generated, even through material affection actually. What to speak of affection towards Krishna? So Raghunath Das Goswami would drink a glass of buttermilk every other day and was in perfect health because he was getting energy from another source, from love. Therefore, when we artificially try to protect ourselves from the sense objects, from the stimuli, then Krishna says, what will happen? Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyartan vimoodatma mityachara sauchyate. Karmendriyani sanyamya. He may keep his senses away from the sense objects. Ya aste manasa smaran. But how will he keep his mind away? Indriyartan vimoodatma. Ya aste manasa smaran indriyartan vimoodatma. Such a person is actually deluded. He's not a cheater in that sense. He's not a cheater because mityachara sauchyate. Such a person is called a pretender. Pretender means he's not trying to cheat others, but he's cheating himself because of false understanding. He is thinking that that I can be a successful sannyasi if I just stay away from sense objects. But it is not like that. The mind also has to be completely free of sense gratificatory desires. Only under such circumstances can one actually be qualified to take up the sannyas. So he says, in his purport to verse 5 of Manah Siksha, Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to a series of verses from chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 62 and 63. This is Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsam, those two verses. They describe how degradation takes place in 8 steps. There is an 8-step yoga, Ashtanga yoga, that has 8 ascending steps, and there are also 8 descending steps. Everything is symmetrical. 8 steps up and 8 steps down. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. These are the 8 steps up. Then Dhyayato, Sangaha, Kamaha, Krodhaha, Sammoha, Smriti Vibrama, Buddhinasha, Pranashyati. These are the 8 reverse steps. Like we had a long discussion on this, if you remember, while we were discussing Bhaktivinoda Thakur's this thing. I will just go to that slide so that I don't have to write it again. While we were discussing Bhaktivinoda Thakur's description of this thing, we were discussing this Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsam. I will just hold on for 1 second. Yeah, I think here. Somewhere here. Yeah. So, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsam. So, Dhyayato means meditation. Sangha refers to attachment. Sangha steshu pajayate. So, Sangha means a generic, you can say like oh, this object is likable. Like that. A generic attachment. Kamaha means it's more deep rooted. I want it. Like that. So, this is slowly the mind gaining control. You see. So, the mind is gaining control here. And then when that kama, when fulfilled, becomes lobha. When frustrated, it becomes krodha. These are more extreme emotions. They are more deep-rooted emotions compared to kama. More absorbing. Lobha and krodha are more absorbing. So in these 4 stages, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, this is the mind gaining control over the intelligence. Mind is becoming more and more powerful. This is indicated. And then 5, 6, 7, and 8. These next 4 stages indicate intelligence actually losing the battle. So he says, Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Sammoha means what? Sammoha means intense absorption. A kind of loss of discrimination as to what is right and what is wrong. That is sammoha. Complete loss of discrimination. When we are completely, some of you might have seen, krodha leading to lack of discrimination is, you can easily see that when we become really angry, we end up doing things which can be extremely detrimental to us, right? That is easy. Lobha also, I gave the example of casino. And going to a casino and ending up losing everything. You forget what is right and what is wrong. If you have heard the story or watched this movie of Alibaba and 40 Thieves, the person goes inside, and then he sees, wow, oh, so much wealth, so much wealth, so much wealth. So he tries to heave everything, and then the door is slowly closing. If only he would have left at least some of it and just ran outside, he would have still been a billionaire. But that greed leads to loss of discrimination. He thinks, I can take little more, like that. Just like the honeybee takes honey from a lotus flower. It can take little and move away, but out of greed, he keeps taking. And when the evening comes, the lotus starts closing. But the greed keeps him completely absorbed in that, and eventually he dies inside that lotus only. Right? So, krodhat bhavati sammoha. It leads to loss of discrimination. Then sammoha leads to what? Smriti vibrama. Smriti vibrama means what? One loses the memory of all his plans to overcome sense gratification. Oh, I will do this. When the evening comes, when the lotus petal will start moving, I'll keep observing when the petal is starting to close. As soon as I observe the first indication of the petal starting to close, I will just run away. So all the plan 1, plan A, plan B, plan C, he starts forgetting. And when he forgets, then it leads to buddhi nasha. Buddhi nasha means loss of determination to pursue one's spiritual life. One loses determination to pursue spiritual life. And eventually, pranashyati. Pranashyati means samsara. He keeps rotating in samsara. So this is actually, the 8 stages. First 4 connected to the mind, and the next 4 connected to the intelligence. How they fall trap, and they drag the living entity down. Right? That is described. And okay, so we will now go and resume back our discussion where we left. Shri Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj's explanation of this verse. So he was talking about the 8 stage Ashtanga Yoga leading to till liberation, and the 8th stage, this Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsam, which leads to actually, going down. Right? So we are currently discussing about how they are connected, how these Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, how they are connected. He is describing here. So in that, he talks about this Mithyachara. And then he says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kamat Krodho Bijayate, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Smriti Vibrama, Smriti Bramshat Buddhinasho, Buddhinashat Pranashyati. He says, these 8 steps leading down start when we begin to meditate on something material. So this starts with Dhyayato, meditation, right? By nature, we are meditators. And if someone doubts it, then pay attention to what we do. We contemplate, we reflect, we begin to look, right? We are naturally meditators. You cannot say stop meditating, right? We have to meditate on something. It can be either material, or it can be something spiritual, right? So we are painfully trying to find an object that will make us happy as we scan the world. What can give me happiness? What can give me happiness? We are painfully scanning all the time, right? This is something only a human being is capable of. This is because other entities do not have a choice. All the other species see only what they need to see, right? For example, A frog's vision is created in such a way that it does not see slow moving objects, but only see fast moving objects like flies. This is very interesting observation. So he says that a frog cannot see slow moving objects. So slow moving insects are never caught by frog. This is a very, I don't know if you have observed it, but Maharaj is giving this observation that slow moving objects frog leaves because the frog cannot see. Only fast moving objects like flies it can see, and its tongue is like, fast enough to just go and grab it and eat it like that. If you slowly touch a frog, it will not see you. The mosquito perceives only warm objects emitting carbon dioxide. That's why if you have observed, mosquitoes will generally bite only those parts of the body, only particular parts of the body, especially joints, where there is emission of carbon dioxide. They will bite there actually more prominently. Everyone has their own vision and each species sees only what it needs, but mankind sees everything. Therefore, a person can develop any desire, right? All kinds of desires. Many kinds of perverted desires human beings can only develop. All the other species, they have standard desires, but you have perverted desires developing only in human beings, right? A person sees something, starts meditating on that object and thinks, maybe that is what I have been missing. This is dhyayato, right? This is dhyayato leading to sangha. A person focuses on something and gains more and more confidence that yes, that is what I need. This is slowly sangha becoming kama, right? This is maybe that is what I have been missing. This is sangha. Yes, that is what I need. This is kama. The nature of meditation is that the more we meditate on something or someone, the greater our sangha or attachment becomes to that object or person. Dhyayato vishayan pumsam sangasteshu bhajayate. Those who practice vairagya may say that if you take some sense object, someone of the opposite sex, for example, and try to see them through a large magnifying glass, they will not look so beautiful, right? So what is their solution for those who are so this is the explanation of vairagis. So you see, if you are attached to any opposite sex, take a magnifying glass and see that same object using a magnifying glass. They will look horrible like that. But I mean, is this a very sustainable way of developing vairagya? He says such persons ignore the way we are created. Sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kama. A person first meditates and then develops attachment or sangha. When attachment is developed, then comes kama, right? Kama means our intelligence is set to work. It means desire, and desire means that the scheme of getting what object has already appeared in our mind. So kama will trigger off the intelligence, because if you really want it, unless your intelligence is scheming as to how you can achieve it, how will one achieve, right? So very powerful mechanisms are set to work. I go into the supermarket, for instance, and see something that I want. If I do not have the money, then I start thinking about how to get the money. When I start making plans of how to get it, lust enters my intelligence. So how lust enters the intelligence? That's what he's indicating. After that, a number of various Physiological mechanisms turn on because intelligence sets to work on our senses, and that's the end. Kama or lust has devoured the mind. Then slowly it starts showing off in our body also, right? First, there is a desire that appears simply in the mind, sanga. Then that desire appears in that intelligence. Then it appears in our senses, and that's it. So like that. So gradually. Kama is also a huge burst of energy. He says, have you noticed what a surge of energy we feel when Kama appears? Right? He says, if Kama is there, then we become very energetic. He gives some examples. He says, the days have been dragging slowly. You have been feeling bored with no desire for anything. You have been feeling depressed, but Kama appears and you spring to life. Then we get fed up with that particular sense object. And again, the days are dragging and boring. And then there is a new object again. And there is a new Kama and a new life. Now, when we are trying to achieve that sense object, when we are trying to get what we need, we inevitably encounter obstacles. So basically in this section, Maharaj is trying to explain how these 6 anarthas are connected. Kama leads, how it leads to Kama, Dhyayato leads to Sanga, Sanga leads to Kama. Now how it is going to, Kama is going to lead to Krodha and Lobha. That's what he's discussing here, right? So when we try to achieve something, when we try to fulfill our Kama, there will be some obstacles. To destroy the obstacles, we need anger. So this is the connection between Kama and Krodha. It is a special energy that destroys obstacles. So Kama, when fulfilled, gives energy in the form of Lobha. When unfulfilled, it gives energy in the form of Krodha. If something stands between me and the object of my desire, I am ready to destroy it all. So this is an energy, right? Who has dared to prevent me? Who has dared to come between me and what I want, what I love? In my anger, I am prepared to do anything. This gang of highwaymen that Raghunath Das Goswami speaks of consists of Kama, Krodha, anger, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. First is lust, the most respected progenitor of the clan. He is the Prajapati. He is the one who gives rise to all the other anarthas. Then Kama gives rise to Krodha, how we just saw, right? When it is not fulfilled. Another name of Krodha is Kamanuja. Kamanuja means Kama's younger brother. Krodha means anger. The river of anger begins to surge. Then we start screaming. We start destroying. We clench fists and our eyes turn red. This energy can sweep anything on its way. Right? So basically, he's explaining how Kama can generate energy either in a positive way or negative way. Then another result of Kama is when we satisfy Kama, then it leads to Lobha. So how Kama is connected to Lobha? That's what he's indicating. We have already discussed this, but again, Maharaj is indicating. If Kama is not satisfied, then there is Krodha. One is outraged and ready to kill everyone. And if we satisfy Kama, then there is greed. Greed is another kinsman, the fat guy in their gang, because he wants to accumulate more, like that. When this gang comes to you, you should know them by their looks. So you should know how to identify them. The Kama that has grown fat is Lobha, greed. The Hitopadesh says that due to Lobha, we lose all shame. We become shameless. I mean, I don't want to go to particular examples, but we can think in our own lives that whenever we allowed kama to grow into lobha, we actually become shameless. Other people can see that what we are doing is not correct. We ourselves can see, but we don't care actually, because we become so selfish and selfishly absorbed that we don't really mind, right? When this greed of satisfied desire develops, we cannot stop it. And there is a third result that is not mentioned among the 6 sins or vices, 6 vices. If the obstacles are too strong for our anger to remove, then fear comes, right? If you can destroy the obstacles, then it leads to krodha. But if you cannot destroy, it leads to bhaya or fear. Sometimes Krishna speaks about it. He says, Vita raga bhaya krodha, right? Raga is kama, or you can even say lobha. Bhaya is fear, and krodha is anger. Raga means kama or lust, bhaya means fear, and krodha means anger. These are 3 emotions associated with each other. Accordingly, as a result of fear, greed, and anger, we are seized by illusion, moha, identifying ourselves with our possessions. So now he is connecting kama, krodha, lobha, bhaya. How it leads to what is called as moha, illusion. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. Like that. So what is this illusion? Moha is when we forget ourselves to such a degree that we are ready to kill someone, right? We saw moha means loss of discrimination as to what is right and what is wrong, right? Then normally we would never do that because our sense of discrimination would stop us from doing that. Again, this is a purely psychological reaction because anger, fear, or greed inside produces an extremely strong drug that obscures consciousness, and we may act in a way entirely out of character because we forget who we are. So these are very powerful emotions which make us, which cover our consciousness. Krishna explains that this is how the downfall takes place, where we do something we would not do otherwise, right? Eventually, at the heart of all is kama. Because of kama, we degrade more and more. We commit a sin we would never imagine being able to commit. But then everything goes like clockwork. Everything is perfect. One ticks the other, and the other ticks off the next, then that ticks off the next, like that. Because moha has covered our intelligence and our consciousness. We do not understand who we are or what we are living for. The Vishnu Puran defines illusion or moha. What does Vishnu Puran say? This is my father and this is my mother. This is my wife and this is my house. But this is not your dad and your mom. This is not your wife and this is not your house and this is not your body. We think it all belongs to us. This kind of deep sense of possessiveness and sense of lack of discrimination, this is called as moha, which is caused due to kama maturing either into krodha or lobha or bhaya. This leads to moha. Actually, nothing belongs to us. We expand our I, and moha makes us expand our ego overall. We are studying the kinship between kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya. What comes after moha? Mada. Mada means what? Pride or madness. So how? He says we start to become proud. So because we saw moha means a deep sense of possessiveness. If I have the deep sense of possessiveness, then whatever belongs to mine, then I become proud of that. This is mine and that is mine. I have so many things. They are all mine. So we start to expect that all others should respect and honor us because we have become very important. I have so many things. Why are people not respecting me? Right? We cannot tolerate even the slightest humiliation. So this deep sense of possessiveness leads to mada. So there is a nice example in Srimad Bhagavatam when Daksha was insulted. Because Daksha was, you know, that whole series you can see in that. So he was insulted because of his sense of possessiveness, moha. It led to mada. And as a result of disrespecting his son-in-law, Daksha was decapitated and his head burned to ashes. Sammohat smriti vibrama smriti bramshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. Right? He was later restored to life when he was given a goat's head as a replacement. Right? Okay, we have 4 slides. I think we can complete. In this way, moha is transformed into mada, and as a result of this, the ripe fruit, the most beloved youngest son in this family is born. And who is this? Matsarya. So deep pride leads to Matsarya. How? Matsarya means when we start to envy someone for being better than we are, even in something small. Right? So a natural byproduct of pride. Moha, when we moha leads to pride when we have something better than others. Moha leads to matsarya when we have something less than others, right? Or envy. It seems to us that the very fact of their existence is humiliating us. When he comes, then I see myself smaller than that person. Our dignity suffers. We feel hurt and we rejoice when another person is suffering. When someone is suffering, we do not show it, of course, but inside we think, Krishna has punished him. Like that we feel. This is how these enemies are related to each other, and at the bottom of all of it is kama, lust. Right? So in this way, very nicely Maharaj has tried to show how they all are connected to each other. Right? Then he says, usually we consider kama to be our friend. Right? Ambition. There are even special training courses that teach people to develop kama. There are motivational training courses where people are told to write down all of their desires and then meditate on them. So people are trained how to do dhyayato vishayan pumsam, like that. Every evening they go through all of their desires and tick off each one. But kama is a terrible thing and generates all human sins. The most surprising of all is that kama is impossible to satisfy. It is not possible. Kama rupam durasadam. It is not possible to fulfill it, satisfy it. Even if one has everything, one will not be satisfied. Therefore, Krishna calls this enemy kama voracious. Mahashano mahapapma vidhi enamiha vairinam. He devours everything. Whatever you give, he will devour. Like that. So in this way, after discussing about lust, Maharaj very nicely discusses how these enemies are connected to each other. Like that. So we still have about 5 minutes left. If there are any quick comments, questions, discussion points based on what we have discussed today. So I'm sorry I did not open up for discussion in between because we had not covered one topic also. So if there are any discussion points, you can please raise your hands. We can have a discussion. We still have some time. Anyone? Gopi Nandini Mataji, I'm unmuting you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat. Previously we saw ki Sankalpa Prabhavan Kama. Where it says the Sankalpa is there because of the Kama is there. Sankalpa is the general version, Kama is the specific one. So here the focus is more on Kama. Why not Sankalpa is focused? The enjoying part of it, where generally it's the enjoying tendency is there.
The generic and enjoying tendency also is addressed here. When we are talking about Kama, it is not just talking about Kama, even though, because here, when we are talking about Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Madamatsarya, there we are not making a differentiation between Sankalpa and Kama. There Sankalpa and Kama are the same only in one sense, same category. But in that particular verse, he talks about Sankalpa Prabhavan Kaman, where Kama is divided into two categories. One is a generic Kama, which is called as Sankalpa, and a more specific Kama, which is termed as Kama. But here, when we are talking about Kama, it includes Sankalpa, Kama both, actually.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Srinivas Prasad Prabhu, I am muting you.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhuji.
Dandavat Prabhu, yes, Prabhu.
Prabhuji, ये जो Bhagavad Gita 3.6 जहाँ पे it's talking about one who restrains the senses of action, but who dwells on sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called pretender. So when we also get in devotional life, so we also feel in the beginning that in a way that if you are not enthusiastic, so act enthusiastically, or we try to give up certain things. So the mind dwells in all those, and gradually following the process, we all those things. So
Prabhu, your voice is, your signal is poor. So your voice is breaking in between. We are not able to hear you properly.
Just a minute, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yes, bro.
My question is like when we get into the process of devotional life, so we also try to give up certain things, but still our mind is somehow or the other dwelling in all those things. But gradually we come up and to some extent from those things. So what can you just throw some light that so initial stage we are also in a mood of those pretenders also, or
no, actually, bro, that is not the context of that. There actually it is talking about the misunderstanding that Arjuna has that अगर मैं ये युद्ध भूमि को छोड़ के फॉरेस्ट में चला जाऊंगा तो मैं सन्यासी बन जाऊंगा, वो गलत फहमी है. that is a misunderstanding that he has, that जो भी फॉरेस्ट में चले गए वो सन्यासी बन गया. ऐसा नहीं है. फॉरेस्ट जाने से सन्यासी नहीं बनते हैं. But if one's heart is completely purified of all material desires, then one goes to the forest. That is a sannyasi. So yeah, so what is mentioned as mithyachari or a pretender, he's not exactly a pretender, but he's actually one who has misunderstood the sannyas ka paribhasha ko galat samajh liya usne.
Correct.
So that is the problem. In our case, actually, if we act enthusiastically, then over a period of time, we actually can become enthusiastic. वो गलतफहमी नहीं है वो. That is real actually. So, Prabhu, again your voice is breaking.
No, I said that very wonderful answer. I got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we have come to the end of today's discussion. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and enthusiastic participation. So hoping to have your association next Tuesday also. So we'll continue these discussions. And for those of you who have contributed towards the purchase of Zoom, so thank you all very much. So I think next week sometime, whenever the current thing expires, we will purchase the next version of Zoom. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Vartaman Acharya Vrinda ki jai. Shri Manah Siksa ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much.